5 p.m. and the last sliver of sunlight is falling on this pipe right here, just like this. It looks like down here is where the sun stopped shining. We are getting some sunlight. If you actually look at it, we're getting a sliver of it right along here. That's not a lot, but it's a little bit more than we were getting yesterday in the other location. The other advantage to this location is that this part of the sky is clear. So actually, when I came out this morning at 9, we were beginning to get sunlight. We were actually getting sunlight on this rather than the other location, which was 10 o'clock over here. However, I am learning that I had the panels back here, and then of course by 4:30 it was in shade, as you can see here. Now it's 5 o'clock, but there is some sun up here. Not here necessarily, but back here. So maybe I need to remove them back out to here to capture just a little more sunlight in the evening. Not that it's making that much of a difference, because here's what we've learned. So last night at 5 o'clock when I tested, I was getting about 107 degree Fahrenheit water out for about 12 minutes. I'm probably going to get the same amount over here, even though it got extra sunlight. If I can move it out here a little bit before this cage, then I can capture those additional minutes or even hours of sunlight, depending on how quickly this shadow travels over here. So it may merit moving this out just a little bit. That said, it's time to test. I just did a test inside and took a picture. It was at 108 up at the top, but I want to see how much water we're getting at that temp. So let me turn on the temperature. Ambient is 85 Fahrenheit, and let me take the probe and put it up here. There we go. All right, and then let me open the tap. And we'll let that water fall down into the biodigester. So we're seeing 105, 106. This is so similar to yesterday that really now it's just going to be a matter of how much time. Actually, it's a little lower than yesterday for some reason, but it could be that there were some clouds today. We did have some cloud cover. Yesterday was a completely clear sky. Today we did have some cloud covers, so that might account for why we're 1 degree less than we were yesterday at this time from the other location, even though it had more hours of sunlight. It's still a really nice temperature for taking a bath or a shower. When we put it into the shed over there and we are going to run the washing machine, it may not be hot enough for the baby's cloth diapers. But this is the experiment, and I'm glad I'm not losing the water this time, because I am draining into one of the biodigesters, the other biodigester, Piatree. So I feel a little bit better about the use of the water, which then goes in to fertilize this area with the chia trees over here. But yeah, it's just about getting it at that rate. I think yesterday I had this valve open a little bit more. So let's see how many minutes we are going. Although I didn't have it open, that's the other thing, is I need to have a consistent level, because yesterday I started out with it closed a bit and then I opened it up after that a little bit wider. Now it's 107 because the top water, the hottest water, is descending down. This part here is just at 86, 87, so the whole bottom part just stays cold. Oops, just drop this out of here. Sorry about that. Let me plug that, put that back in there. If I can get it to stay. There we go. Yeah, 107. So it's really this question of the amount of available sunlight. The thing is that in the morning when I came out here at 9, yes, it was getting sun that we weren't getting over by the shed in the front. The problem is that 9 o'clock sunshine is low, and it's mostly reflecting, and it's not heating up. So when I came back at 10 and checked it, it wasn't doing any thermosiphoning. So that hour of extra sunlight seemed to be more or less lost. Now, maybe not completely lost. Maybe it was heating up the copper pipes, and they just weren't hot enough to start the thermosiphoning, to start the flow of hot water. That is certainly possible. But it didn't seem to give a lot of advantage, and that corresponds to a lot of the stuff that I realized in Cairo back in the day when I was doing this, that it really is the sunlight between 10 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon that is giving you your solar hot water. And the hours before that just don't do much, and the hours after that don't do much. Maybe from 4 to 5 you're still getting stuff, because Lordy, it still feels hot here, even though that's now in shade there. And I'm going to have to, as I see here, move this. The best location for this is going to be, well, it can't be there because there's a shade from that shed. So really we're talking about this location here is where we're going to have to put things to get some of this extra sunlight. But that fence is destined to come down here and cut this off and also shade that area, unless we can move the proposed school building, the shed for the Native American thing, move it back a little bit so I can have some of that. And that'll also cause some shading in the morning. So there's always compromises with solar, for sure. But keeping this going, now you can see we're at 109. And that is because we're getting toward the top of this. 108, 109. Very similar to what we had yesterday. Very similar indeed. So we're just riding it through, just testing it out, counting the minutes. Now I got up to 109. It must be getting to the very surface waters there. It's not likely to go down at all because the top water is draining down, so it's always going to be as hot or hotter, obviously, until we run out of water, because I'm not pushing any cold water in. Tomorrow I'll do the experiment with turning on the hose and pushing the cold water in. For now, I'm just interested in seeing the comparison between this and yesterday's results. So yeah, we know it could be used for a 12-minute shower. Maybe longer, because this is without a restriction nozzle, without any kind of aeration, without any kind of flow restrictor. But, yep. Coming out. In the name of science. Everything's in the name of science. But obviously, this is the best location to be putting the panels, because now they're in shade over there, and I'd still have full sun here. So maybe till at least 5:30, maybe till 6, for all we know. So but that's one of the biggest issues, is shade structures. How nice it would be if things were designed, like if the roof of these sheds was designed so that you could put solar panels on without making penetrations, and so you could put a hot water barrel up there. We don't design with the sun in mind. That's one of the greatest tragedies of civilization, is that since ancient times, when they did design with the sun in mind, we completely ignore, for the most part, the orientation to the sun, and so we don't have south-facing sloped roofs in the northern hemisphere and north-facing sloped roofs in the southern hemisphere, so that buildings can capture a lot more of the energy. It's always a problem siting your solar electric panels and solar hot water panels because of the orientation of the roofs. And also, there's not much discussion of solar rights, and so people inevitably shade one another's properties. If we did some planning and we had some concern, then we could be much more efficient and not blunder into this climate conundrum, which is so easily soluble. Just stop using fossil fuels. Stop doing industrial agriculture. We'd be healthier. We'd be happier. Such a crime. It's just, I don't have any more sympathy for the people using some weird economic argument that only really benefits a handful of really wealthy families who are causing misery for the rest of us, because they would be perfectly happy in a solar economy, in a circular economy. They could have abundance, and if they wanted to have more than others, they could still have more. They just wouldn't have such obscene amounts more. I really don't understand what's wrong with a progressive tax rate once you've made a certain number of millions, or certainly billions. Like, why wouldn't you then reinvest in the society that has supported your wealth and privilege and all your great freedoms? It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, they're just trying to keep up with the wrong Joneses, I think. We should have more people who are trying to keep up with the Joneses of potlatch, of charity, but keep up with those who are doing the Bruce Wayne stuff, doing the heroic stuff of being willing to sacrifice for the common good. That seems like the greatest privilege of wealth. If y'all would help me to become super rich, then I can fulfill my campaign promise that I would do things in such a way that it would increase the general level of wealth for everybody else, and certainly the general level of health and well-being. I would prove it. And my students were asking me today, you've got all these great ideas, why aren't you doing it all? Like, where's all the hydroponics, aquaponics, growing giant clams in urban settings, and growing coral, and growing native wildlife, and where is all that stuff? How come you're not 100% off the grid and 100% sustainable? And I just don't have the investment capital to create the infrastructure. So it all really comes down to infrastructure in my mind, because if a society was truly functioning well, it's sort of Pareto optimum, then the infrastructure would be there for us to plug into and generate new wealth from, and generate greater health and create more ecosystem balance. It's not like we couldn't do it. We just choose not to.